Okay. Yesterday when I was walking around and looking at your notebooks, I noticed a couple of things that I think we need to address today in our session. Remember that we're working on the standard of where we can identify two or more main ideas in a text and explain how they're supported by key details. Okay, that is our standard 1.2 in reading informational text. Okay, so I want to walk you through this strategy chart that you placed inside your notebook, because these are the steps that you need to take when you are reading nonfiction and taking notes. Okay? Remember that as we are reading more complex nonfiction, we can't rely on our old strategies completely. We've learned so far that sometimes the headings or the subheadings in what we're reading can be misleading. They are no longer going to tell us exactly what that section is about. They are no longer going to identify for us the main idea. Okay? We also, as we move up in complexity, we're going to encounter text that has more than one main idea in it. It's going to have multiple main ideas. All right? And some of those main ideas or central messages are going to be what we call implicit or hidden. In lower levels of complexity, the main idea pops out at us. But as we get into more complicated text, we have to be ready to think about what main idea we might need to infer about it. Okay? So the steps that are needed when you are trying to identify main ideas is that you're going to read part of the text. You're going to read a part of the text. And you are going to stop and think to see if you can determine the main idea. Now remember, I can't remember who it was. When I walked around yesterday, somebody was just copying the headings down. And they were saying that those were the main ideas. A main idea needs to be a sentence. And if you remember our work when we did small group work during the first quarter, and we worked in the Ready books in our strategy groups, we talked about topic. So we might be reading something, maybe the topic is robots or robotics, okay? But the main idea is what the author is saying about robotics. If you're reading something and the author is talking about all of the things that robotics can help us with, tasks that robotics can help us with, the main idea isn't like all the things that robots can do, it's that robots can make our life easier. Okay, so we have to think very carefully about what is the main idea. What is the author saying about this topic? Okay, so we read a part of the text, we figure out the main idea, we figure out the supports or the details that the author is using. Okay, think to what you were just doing in Writer's Workshop. In Writer's Workshop, you had a main idea. The producers of the video helped to develop the theme through the setting. And then you're going to use those details to support what you said in your main idea. So when you're reading, you're going to do the opposite of that. You're going to ask yourself, how did the author support this idea? How did the author provide details to this main idea so that I can understand it? Then, because this text can be more complicated than what we've been reading in the past, we continue to read, but we have to continue to read with our ears and eyes ready to notice if the main idea shifts. We're not always going to get a signal from the writer. We're not always going to get a new heading that tells us that they're changing to another main idea. They might just go to a new paragraph and talk about something different regarding that. So we have to be careful. So as we're reading, look at the second bullet there, as we're reading the next part, we keep asking ourselves, is this information still about that same idea? Is this the same main idea that I'm reading about? Or has the main idea shifted? Is this now a different main idea that the author is talking about? And if it is, then we have to note that in our notes. We have to put down the next main idea. What is the author saying about our topic now? And what evidence, what details, what support is that author now giving us on this new idea? All right, we really have to be reading wide awake, writerly eyes and ears to make sure that we're paying attention to that. The third piece of this strategy chart is to be thinking about how the group parts connect to each other. So as we're reading our book, we stop and we think, oh, this part connects because they started by talking about all of the problems that these animals have in this habitat. And now the main idea is shifting, and now the author is saying that many people are trying to help these animals. And so now they're talking about something else. That's how they're connected. They're connected because this is the problem. This is the solution. Okay? So thinking about the way that all of the parts of the book that you're reading fit together, why they are there. And just like we know in fiction that an author makes deliberate, on-purpose choices, the same is true in nonfiction. Authors make deliberate choices in order to present information in a certain way to help you learn. Okay? All right. So today when you're working and you're reading, you're going to continue your note-taking, and you're going to keep this strategy sheet in front of you so that you can practice the steps to the strategy. And so hopefully we'll see an improvement in the notes that you're taking, and hopefully it will help you as you start reading more and more complex text. Any questions before I move you to work period? Matthew? Okay, so I will show you how to go to the Jacksonville Public Library website and use the databases. Okay, any other questions? Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm.